Thank you very much indeed for coming to tonight's full council meeting. First item of business is the election of mayor, to vote on the election of mayor and receive the declaration of acceptance of office. Just to explain to the residents who aren't live but might be watching later, how this will work. Two of us have been nominated. I've been nominated, and while I hope people think that I've carried the role out with energy and direction, I've only managed to do that knowing I've had the full confidence of everyone, which I don't think I have. So, on top of that, I'm going to miss, I think, the next 12 meetings for trips I'm on, so I won't be standing as mayor again now. I'm very grateful to those who've nominated and supported me, and sorry for letting people down. That leaves David as the only nomination, and having spoken to him last week, I'm glad that he's keen to keep our direction of travel going on. And if you have any questions for him, I'm sure he'd be willing to answer them. Otherwise, we'll proceed straight to the vote. Any questions from anyone?
I don't think I'll get such an easy run for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Right. So the item is to vote on the election of mayor. All those in favour?
We need a proposer and a second.
Need a proposer. We've got a proposal from David. We've got a second of David Fuller. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. There we are. Right.
Can I just
Hand over the chains of office.
just one thing, if you don't mind? Can I just intercede very quickly? I think I would like to offer my sincere thanks to Ian. I think he's been one of the best mayors that I've seen, and I've been here since 2010, on and off. He's established some very strong communications and improved that tremendously between OTC and the town. He's also managed to get us to become a full council, and there's loads of other things. And to be honest, as an ex-teacher of Alfred School, I don't know how you found the time. We've got a mayor's report here, which is incredibly full, showing how devoted you have been to the role. It's been impressive, and I, for one, would like to offer my personal thanks to you for leading us so well and you know, with a vision in the last 2 years. So I really do want to say thank you, and the only way I can think of it is to give you a clap.
David, over to you.
Right, well, thank you so much for the confidence. I hope I'll be able to repay it. Ian referred to energy and direction, and we certainly have that in abundance. And it's not going anywhere, so we're still going to be able to tap into all that accumulated knowledge, not only from the last 2 years as mayor, but prior to that. So, election of deputy mayor. Emma, what nominations?
I think Rupert's would like to nominate him.
Nominate Ian to serve as deputy on the basis that David has considerable experience and perspectives. Ian has declined to stand for a further year as mayor, but I think he will have enough time ad hoc to help David from the sidelines, as and when David needs or asks for such help. So, on that premise, I nominate Ian for the deputyship.
Thank you, Rupert.
Do I have a seconder? Do we have any other nominations?
To nominate Val to offer some diversity for the town in terms of having a female representing the town as deputy mayor. We are represented, I think, by currently 3 females. I think it'd be nice for the town to see that we're having a female as a deputy mayor. I oppose that.
Do I have a seconder for Councillor Chesser?
Yep.
Councillor Fuller? We're going to do this by either show of hands or a secret ballot. I'm quite happy to do it either way. I'm sure Emma's got some bits of paper. That
Well, I haven't, because I think normally we just do it by show of hands.
I'm dinner. Okay, well, the first to be nominated was Councillor Clark, and I think perhaps given sitting at the moment, I'm going to
So
abstain.
can I just ask, are they actually willing to accept the nominations?
I suppose I should have asked.
I am, yes.
Mr. Chess?
Yes, yes, okay.
We still have a vote. I'm going to abstain from it for obvious reasons. So, those in favour of electing Councillor Clark as Deputy Mayor, please show. And those in favour of Councillor Chester? Councillor Clark, duly elected as Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure that will work very well for us. Right, let's move on. Apologies for absence. We've had, I think, apologies from Councillor Wade, who's
Yes, well,
seems to be walking through vast swathes of Spain, I spoke the other day. And Councillor Dubois, who isn't here this evening, so I think we can take it that her ongoing maternity leave from the council, as it were, continues. Do we accept those apologies?
Yeah.
Do we have any declarations of interest with the disclosable pecuniary or otherwise?
oh, sorry David, we also have apologies from Councillor Dubois as well.
Yes, I referred to her. I wasn't sure whether she'd actually specifically given them, but if she's specifically given them, so that's it.
Yes, she has, yeah.
Yes. Any interest to declare?
Can we just stop? Because you've got silence.
Ah,
Has everything been leaked?
does it? I hope that doesn't invalidate anything we've just done. Sorry. Hiccup. Perhaps I'll ask for a third time of asking any interests.
No.
The dispensation, reports of anything untoward. Right, that brings us on to the minutes of the meeting which was held on the 18th of April. Present councillors Clark, Arnold, Chesser, Shurer, Wade, Ray, myself and Reichhold. These have been circulated. May I sign these as a true record? Somebody? Otherwise we never get past this. Councillor Clark, somebody second it? That's all those in favour? Thank you. Right. Public participation from interested parties.
Haven't had that.
There are none. Consideration of requests from interested parties, presumably none. And sadly, this evening, nobody from Northampton.
No, Councillor Harris did send her apologies. She's away.
Doubtless if anybody has any questions of Councillor Harrison, she will respond by email. She's very assiduous at that kind of thing. Town matters. To receive the report from the annual town meeting. Now that has been circulated prior to tonight. If I can say, I thought that was an extremely good meeting. It engaged well with the public. The public responded not only by turning out in pretty impressive numbers, but actually participating in the Q&A session that was in part of it. It is just to receive that report, so unless anybody has any specific comments in relation to the annual town meeting, we'll move on.
Just what if I may just seen it. I tried to do a video the other day of how to do Street Doctor, and it worked quite well until I tried to stop my video, and there's 4 minutes of me shouting at my phone. I couldn't work out how to do it. So I might try and do another one without me shouting at my phone. I thought someone said, lots of people said, how do we record it, but I'm not sure how easily people are aware of doing it on their phone. So I'll have another go, but with less shouting.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's an excellent idea.
If not, use Rebecca.
Yes, you might have to edit the first
To receive news of the RBL's 100 mark and decide further action. Emma, can you enlighten?
This is actually Ian.
This is for me. A resident accosted me the other week and said, do you know the Royal British Legion is 100? I said, no. And he said it's very exciting, and it's the Arundel branch, and it's quite unusual, it's quite rare, and it's wonderful. And obviously they play a very important part in our remembrance service in November. They are in the process, I think, of ordering a pendant, which I think is something that's going on their colours, as it were. And I was wondering if we should offer to buy the pendant for them. It's £120. And I was also wondering if we should present it to them on some occasion. They've got 2 or 3 events coming up in the next few months. The commemoration of Falklands, the commemoration of VE Day, I think, and the commemoration of DJ Day at the memorial. So for someone to present something to them, if people thought it was a good idea.
Councillor Fuller.
With some experience in services. This would be a very symbolic gesture, and therefore I am fully in agreement with Ian's comment about doing it at one of their events. It will mean an awful lot to the people receiving it. It's a big thing. I mean, I don't know if you saw the coronation, but prior to the coronation, the colours for some regiments were given by the King. I mean, in the old days you used to fight for your colours if you watch your sharp and stuff like that. They were the big thing that you fought for, and they mean a lot to service people. So this is not just a pennant, it means to the people involved. So I would fully support the idea of what you're suggesting and make it a bit of a big thing for them.
On a purely technical point, since there isn't an item on the agenda to spend the money, can we resolve to do that tonight? Or will we
No,
have to do that?
unfortunately, no, you can't. So you would need to. Is there a time?
It depends. If the earliest would be June the 14th or 15th, but it's more likely to be June the 29th or August the 15th.
June the 29th obviously comes after our next meeting. So I'm going to suggest we put an item on the agenda. That sounds to me like an excellent idea. What was also going through my mind was whether or not we hold some sort of maybe reception for the British Legion, perhaps in this room, a bit later in the year, maybe in the run-up to
They thought something down where they're doing the.
Oh, I was thinking of that as it were in addition to that. Anyway, if we put an item on the agenda for next time, A, that'll enable us to spend the money, and B, people can turn their minds to perhaps ways of recognising the role of the Royal British Legion in Oundle itself. Attended these days in November since 1987, I think it's my first one as a councillor. They do a remarkable job in terms of just putting on that event, and it's no small thing to do. So I think it's vital that we recognise them. Councillor?
I think it should definitely go in the next, Oundle communications thing. If you write an article about them, just onto that.
Yeah, is it Ian? Did you speak to Stephen Abel? Who have you spoken to?
Wayne Park.
So maybe speak to him and get a bit more.
Yeah, I'll get some more information.
Right. Well, thank you for that. That sounds like an extremely good idea.
Highlight.
To to receive the Mayor's report. Strangely, I've done very little in the 12 minutes that I've been Mayor. But Ian has produced
Full colour.
a very detailed report with full pictures and everything. Ian, is there anything you want to sort of highlight
Yeah,
in that or
There's just three things, I think. One of them was, we talked last time about reporting back on the ideal businesses, and I've done that here a little bit, community transport thing. And there's some dates for the diary. The Charity Bowls event on the 28th of May, trip to Uppingham on the 2nd of June, for those who want to go and see a minibus in operation. And I might sign David up for a really early morning on June the 5th at Rowell, which is a great honour to be invited to that. And then the food festival, etc. But the two really important events were, first of all, on the front there, the evening sign a couple of weeks ago at Saints in Northampton. You can see the Archbishop of Peterborough just standing in the photo there. I've done a video which Rebecca's put online as well. One of the most important things, and I've done a few of these events now, which aren't my natural world, but I had a conversation with a member of staff from West Northants Council, and she was making me drink some champagne, very, very small glasses of champagne, and she said, "Who are you and why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I was," and she said, "Why have you come? Amble's not in Northamptonshire." And I said, "Well, it is." And she went, "No, it's in Peterborough." I went, "No, it's not." And we had a 20-minute discussion which involved getting Google Maps out to prove to her that we were in the right place. And it just reaffirmed the importance of us being seen at things in and around, and talking, reaffirming. On Sunday afternoon, I popped down to see the community payback people. Well, I also went to see the triathlon, which had 3,000 people at it. It was a remarkably busy event and did the town all sorts of good. The community payback team were down at the cemetery on Sunday. They've done a lot already. They liked to tell us what they were doing, and I think it would be really good as evidence. They're going to be down there for quite a few months, I think, on those Sundays. And it'd be nice if we, as individuals, could pop down maybe and just say hi, say thank you, lend a hand, pick up a paintbrush, put a stone in the wall, or whatever it happens to be. But yeah, they were making good progress. I think you'll see they've made a visible difference already, but I suspect it's quite a long-term project. So they were the two key points there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. There are some very useful dates in the diary. Some suggested names and sales. Anybody taking charge of that charity bowls as such?
I've got a couple of people who said they might be willing, but they don't know how to play bowls. And I may or may not be available, so it depends on what's happening with Bernie House that day. It's hard to just start.
I'm definitely going. There's one in our own shop who volunteers. She's a bowls member.
I
So
think
there you go.
three's the team. Three's the team.
So Jamie, definitely. Joe, your name's down.
I was one of the ones that I've never bowled in my life.
I'll second you.
If that's understood, then I'll make myself available. Any use.
I'm not entirely sure that this is about anything other than the taking part, but based on the apparent lack of experience with it, I can't say that I have any particularly either. My grandfather was an extremely good bowler, but
I think John
it
said
passed
he
down
might.
through the generations.
John said he might.
Yeah, John isn't here, so he's back at the end of the month. In fact, I think he's back in 29, so he might not be available. Right, perhaps we'll kind of liaise together. Be nice to see if one of these push out a team. It's not exactly the most accomplished bowling team we've ever seen. And the community transport thing is a little way off, so perhaps we can.
I think we've got John's coming,
Yeah.
Jamie maybe, and Max possibly. Yeah, so I just an order I'll everyone up so that's all done and dusted.
Excellent. Clerk's report has, I think, also been circulated. Emma, is there anything in there that you want to
There's a couple of
talk us through?
things that were already on the Mayor's report. and a couple of things that are already on the agenda. I met with Philip Amps just to sort of determine where the new container is going to go, and I'm hoping to hear soon, once we've paid for it, when it's going to be delivered. Morag and I visited the Thursday markets and looked into manoeuvring some of them, getting a few of them to sort of bring some of their stock back in rather than spreading everywhere. It's work in progress and it's small steps at a time, but we've already got a couple of new stalls on there. The community emergency plan meeting that I went to, which is later on in the agenda, was really informative. You know, something that I really think we should consider doing. That's it, really.
Would you like us to put that on the agenda for June as well?
The
That community plan.
well, it's already on this agenda. Yeah. Just to sort of start the process, because I think it's going to take a little while.
Yeah. So, next item is an annual one, which is to receive and approve the standing orders. Have you made any changes to
No.
last year?
I did look because currently the Estates Committee is meeting slightly earlier, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know it was going to be for 6 months and then reviewed again. But having seen in the stand, I thought we'd got times for committee meetings, but we haven't. We've only got time for the full council meeting. But then Lisa's already said that you may be thinking about returning back to 7:30.
I
Well, I'll leave that to that committee.
But it doesn't
Who can
affect
do
standing
election?
orders. That was the only thing that I could see that might affect it.
If anybody has the stamina to plough their way through those, and if anybody then felt there was anything that needed changing, or procedure for changing it, is that we table the proposed amendment 1 month and then we debate it the next, so it's quite a lengthy process. However, there's a certain merit to if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They are based on the standard models anyway, and they've served us pretty well over the years. Possibly the same may hold true of the financial regulations. Have we tweaked those at all?
No. I think we made a few amendments last time, but I don't think, no, there's none for this time.
To some degree the same applies. Let's move on. The next...
Are we saying that
they're supposed to receive and approve them, so
Yeah.
do we approve both documents as tabled?
I second it.
All those in favour? Seems to be everybody. Right. To receive the asset register, that again has been circulated. It is just a question of receiving it. Don't cause heartache in the office by going through it and suddenly pointing out that something's missing. Like, you remember your Blackadder and the word sausage in Mr. Johnson's dictionary, which wasn't there and caused him some apoplexy. I'm sure that if we suddenly produce an asset that isn't on here, we're going to get a similar reaction amongst the staff. But otherwise, it's just a question of receiving that. And then the next item is the one that Emily was talking about a minute ago, which I missed. To consider information regarding the community emergency plan and to agree next action.
It was really interesting. And although, if you remember, some time ago we had the gas leak that happened in Oundle, and this building was used as an emergency building, not for people to come and stay, but gas company set up here, and this was their hub, and they were able to give out heaters and various things. But what we talked about was if there was a power outage, because although that was quite awful for some of the people, and it was in February when it was cold, the things that get affected when power goes out is a lot more, even to the point of like you can't get running water and various things. So I think some of the town parish councils that were there, they have got plans. Some have got old plans. But I think I don't know whether you've ever had a plan. I couldn't find a plan, but even if we've had a plan, it's going to be out of date now. So I think we should consider having one, and just going through all the things, like maybe getting organisations that we would think would be able to help. One, I think, would be like Volunteer Action, because they would know vulnerable people. But it's a case of going out to all of those different organisations and groups, seeing if they would all like to come together, and then we can work a plan. And then finding out who've got generators and just so that we've got something in place.
We need to involve the school in that.
Well, yeah.
Both
Yeah.
schools, actually.
Councillor Davis.
I might just suggest that we have a small working party to look at it. And I might even put somebody forward to give us a hand. Because my good lady wife has just gone back to work for the constabulary and came, I know it's different force, doing this very subject. So we might have some assistance. I'm almost putting myself forward to sort of help out with a small working party, but get some outside
Yeah.
work. And this is the very thing that my wife is doing, having gone through this process with another county, but she's actually involved in the community side, which is going to be of great assistance to us.
Clearly is, and I'm very grateful to you for putting your name forward. Any other councillors wish to join you, Councillor Davis? Councillor Fuller?
I'll certainly help.
Councillor Arnold? I think 3 was probably sufficient.
And I'll speak to Anne if it's okay, Mayor, that I can chat. She's doing a presentation next week on this very subject. We can try and see what we should offer in terms of, like you're saying, if we have a power outage like we did the other week, even electric, the electric went off for 5 hours, I think. Now, yes, that went off from about 11 o'clock and came on at 4 o'clock. But there are certain establishments in the town that still need their electric running.
Yeah, definitely.
And that could have a big impact on what we do.
Morag and myself both went on the emergency, so it would, the working party would also involve us too as well. But I think we can sit down.
But these very same people, I know the names, very same people that are working alongside other counties. So
Yeah.
So Annie Bailey talks to my good lady on a weekly basis over certain things.
To start to make a move on that, and perhaps we will have the item on the agenda for next time, just to see where we've got to with it. Councillor Fuller.
We did run a proper emergency exercise here, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, which involved the Red Cross. So it wasn't a power outage, it was flooding. So the only thing that stops this building being a 24-hour safe haven is the lack of showers. We are not classed as a 24-hour safe haven. They got kitchens in. They basically took over the whole of Flat House, and they bring in caterers, they bring in medics, they bring in the whole lot. It's absolutely fantastic to see. They bring in comms as well, so you get separate comms. And the criticism of this place, because it's seen as a very good place to do this.
Yeah, when we talked about community hubs, which is what they called, like village halls and things, having showers wasn't
It was the British Red Cross's
wasn't
issue.
a priority. And obviously here we've got here QVH, Jones Strong Centre.
This is not for 24 hours. You can't keep them for 24 hours. You can't sleep here. That was what we had. That was the feedback we got from that exercise. Was we cannot sleep people here.
The message from the slideshow is very much that everything stops, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no electric, no phone, no water.
So I suppose
They can't
Yeah.
be willing to have electric
Yeah,
generators.
electricity.
Yeah.
How do you run your generator? Do you run your generator?
Oh, that's
Because
just
you
one.
know, how do you
I
get
mean,
fuel to put in? It's
just to quickly, emergency plans for all sorts of emergencies. So this is about power cuts. It's not just power cuts. There's other sorts of emergencies that So yes, the scope will be all emergencies and how do we cope. But the Flame House was excellent.
Mhm.
I'm just pointing out the only thing that stops it being seen as a 24-hour place is Black Shout.
I don't think we'll be putting any in the near future, so Councillor Davis, if you can
Yeah.
start a move on that, and we'll come back to us next month and tell us where we've got to. If you want any assistance, clearly you'll be talking to Emma as part of that exercise, but if you want any other assistance, we'll just ask. That brings us on to a rather convoluted exercise of working our way through our various committees. Helpfully, the agenda sets out what they are and who's already on them. It may very well be that those people who are already on particular committees might very well wish to stay there, which might make matters simpler. The first one on the list is simply the planning committee. As you'll note, in terms of the actual committee structures, mayor and deputy mayors are there as of right. In terms of the others on that committee, currently councillors Fuller, Chesser, Davis, Jones, Arnold and Shura. Are all of you willing to stand on that committee again?
Yep.
Yeah.
It is one of those committees that is rather unusual because every councillor is entitled to be a member of it, so if anybody else is keen to be, please step forward. And occasionally the planning committee will widen its ambit and invite other councillors to attend if there's a significant application. And in June I can mention the fact that for I think it's now the 4th time the application in respect of the Stoke Door Road site is coming back. To say to haunt us, but anyway, it's back again, so all councillors will be welcome to contribute. Estate Management Committee, which is the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, and currently councillors Chesser, Dubois, Arnold and Shura. Now, 3 of you are here. Do you all wish to stay on that one? Do we know if Rebecca's actually indicated anything in particular?
She hasn't to me, I don't know.
I think she was going to come back and carry the
Well, I'm just going to assume that in the absence of her having told us that for some reason she didn't want to be on it, we'll just assume she does.
She has some ideas.
I think in practical terms that's more or less full anyway.
Are you looking to join Estate?
I think it might be fairly occasionally, bearing in mind that if you're not careful you end up is a month which might tax anybody.
Yeah.
Can I just point out that we've had problems being quorum nonetheless?
What's on this page?
Yes.
That,
Okay, at the moment.
Okay. Anybody else desperate to move on to estates?
I don't mind. I'm happy to volunteer for that if there's short of numbers. Certainly while Rebecca's on maternity. I'm happy to still go.
That'd be great.
Please help me.
I've added you in.
I just got to work out what time he wants to start.
Leave it ahead of it.
Yeah.
Right, move on. F&GP, which again is Mayor, Deputy Mayor, the head of the Estates Committee. Okay. First meeting after tonight, Estates will vote a chairman in, and he or she will automatically become a member. And then there are up to 5 other councillors. Currently, in addition to Ian and myself, there's Councillor Reichhold, Councillor Hutton, Councillor Wade, and Councillor Arnold. And I know, speaking to Councillor Wade, although he can't be with us tonight, he's very keen to be involved in that committee. That probably leaves one gap if anybody wants to come on. Otherwise, we can leave it at that number. It seems to work. Personnel, pretty similar setup. Again, it's the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, the Head of Estates, and 5 others. The others currently are Councillors Reicholt, Chesser, Gray and Davis. So again, there's one gap up. Or are you willing to
Yes.
continue in that role?
Can I just raise a point? When's the next personnel meeting? Is it September?
The next one is September.
Good. I know it says down the bottom you need to put vice chairs etc. in place at the meeting. But given the appraisal situation coming up over the summer, we could suggest that we ask Lisa to dip that route to help the work over the
That
summer.
would be an excellent idea. We're very fortunate to have various people with expertise in all sorts of areas on this council. It seems madness not to avail ourselves of it. So, Rita, if you're
Yeah, I'm
willing to sort of step up to that straight away,
Yeah.
a sort of confirmatory vote when we get to September, but that'll enable you to play a positive role within the appraisals.
Yeah, so have an interim meeting.
Right, now we're into the two working parties we've got. So comms, which is currently councillors Wade and Fuller in terms of the councillors. So it's a bit thin on councillors, but it also has Emma and Lisa, and in fact Rebecca involved. Again, I know that Councillor Wade was very keen to continue in that role. Councillor Fuller, are you happy to?
Of course, yes. I mean, it's a good number. We don't need. We tend to do things by email, so it works well.
If anybody else has an interest in comms, then by all means come along to the next comms meeting, and I'm sure they'll welcome you with open arms. Climate Working Party, currently 4 councillors on that. Councillors Clark, Hutton, Jones and Arnold. Are the 4 of you willing to carry on?
Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
Again, there is space if anybody is keen to become involved in that. I suspect the same applies if somebody decides they'd like to come along and have a taster session, for example. They can go along and see whether it's something that they might want to get involved in. And as it says at the bottom here, the committees and working parties shall be electing their chairman and vice chairman at their first meeting.
One of them, there's the very small transport working party. That's right. Which is you, me and you. So I've got to go through all the stuff from the report over half-term general. A few things to do.
Yes, that's very true.
So who's that?
Luke, David and myself.
Yes, that's right.
I'll add that in.
Yeah. If anybody, again, has a burning desire to get involved, I'm sure we'll be very happy to welcome you into it. Right. Terms of reference. It simply says all terms of reference will be reviewed at the first meeting. It's a note to ourselves to remind ourselves of that. The next one says elect or confirm council representatives to certain bodies. The Museum Trust, it's actually got myself, Councillor Fuller and Councillor Chesser down, but in fact Councillor Shure is also
Okay.
one of our councillor reps, and he's already part of that Museum Trust group. So, is everybody currently on it? Happy to
No,
remain on it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think you've got to stay for 4 years anyway, have you?
It's 4 years.
Well, yes. The plan was that councillors come on and then essentially stay there throughout their council term. Obviously can't force people to do so, but that's the expectation, certainly. Fair trade. Mr. Clark, happy to carry on?
Very much. This is like me, isn't
The church clock fund is always the mayor and the deputy mayor anyway. I mean, it's only got my name in it, but technically it's both of us.
I'll put that add you in.
It meets once a year for about 10 minutes, so it's probably the least arduous of the two.
That's why they put the clock up.
Annual Business Association, Councillor Davis, happy to continue. Chat, we haven't got any name down here, but I thought Councillor Chester.
Sorry, what did you say?
Well, it's chat. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have a name
Well,
in
we
it.
did have, but they're no longer. We need to elect a new
We
one.
need to elect somebody. Is anybody willing to become the council rep to chat?
Yeah, anyway, so-
Could you tell us more about
That's
it?
just what I was going to ask, actually.
What the daily,
Yeah, what does it
monthly,
involve?
yearly life?
Just very briefly explain what chat is and what the role
Use
would be.
counselling service covering Amble and the villages and all the way really wider than that. We provide counselling service for up to 21, but it's really meant to be for students, for school children. And we go into the schools and we do straightforward counselling, and we've got various other types of therapy that we also carry out.
In terms of the council rep, what would they be expected to do the counselling bit, or would they be
No,
expected to have an
absolutely
admin
not.
role and some
It would not be that, because all the councillors are trained and members of Backup, which is their trade union, as it were. But you would just be a member of the trustee committee meetings,
they need to
which
have?
are about, well, we've been having quite a few lately, but they normally would be about 5 a year, something like that, 5 or 6 a year. And meetings
What-
are in
can I just
the
ask-
old courthouse where they are offices.
Yeah. So what type of things would be discussed? What sort of decisions
Well,
would have to be made?
everything about the administration, fundraising,
Okay.
funding, administration, everything. Obviously, we have paid councillors,
Yeah.
we have paid office staff, so there is.
I would put myself forward for that.
You would. Yeah, excellent.
That's wonderful.
Excellent.
Are we all happy that Councillor Gray becomes our rep? You're
Yeah.
free to say that you are. Right, wonderful, thank you.
Great, absolutely great.
Volunteer action rep, that's a right goal currently.
Please,
Carry on.
and I'd carry on indeed. And I maintain regular contact with Stuart Anderson, chairman of their trustees.
Thank you so much. The Parson Lathams Council.
Yeah, I did contact them because I seem to remember last year when Councillor Holland was elected, they did say that they'd changed their status, so they're a company limited by guarantee now. So in effect, they've got trustee directors, so they don't need a representative from this council.
Right.
That's what she was saying, wasn't it? She was implying
Well, it looks in that case as if we can take that one
Yeah.
off our list. Given that that means that we don't have the connection that historically we've had, certainly the whole time I've been in the council, it might be nice at least once a year to invite somebody from there to just come and have a 10-minute chat to us.
They were invited to the annual town meeting, because as a rule they used to also give a copy of their accounts for the annual town meeting. But I don't know whether that, the reason how they've changed, whether that means they don't feel that they have to do that anymore. I'm not quite sure.
Perhaps we could contact them after this meeting and just say that we'd like somebody to liaise with us by providing a report at least once a year if possible, and see what comes back. Transition Amsel. Happy to carry on. Are there any other representative bodies that we've missed out on this stream? Right, the next item is to elect stroke confirm, which suggests that you're not allowed to leave, the council flood warden, which is Councillor Fuller. Are you willing to continue in
Always,
that role?
yeah, I've been doing it long enough.
All happy with that, presumably? The next one is the council path warden. Now, council path warden is not a councillor. There are times when it might appear otherwise. Tony did a very nice little talk at the town meeting about what his role is and about the footpaths in general. I'm sure we're all very happy with that. So if he is willing to continue, I suggest that we unanimously re-elect him to the role. Happy? Yeah.
Yes.
To elect stroke confirm 2 verification councillors, currently Councillor Hutton and Wade. I know Councillor Wade is willing to carry on. Councillor Hutton. Yes. Excellent. And to confirm the police liaison rep, Councillor Fuller again.
Yes, please.
Carry on.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I don't think that list has missed anybody out either. So
No,
if,
I can't think of
anybody has got a role or we've kind of missed it, tell me then.
Sorry, it's not on the list and it's not a job yet. But in the last NCAP, you mentioned highways warden.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's
They,
an idea.
yeah, I remember years ago, we used to have highways wardens. It tended to be the clerk because that's the person that liaises with, but they're not talking about them yet, so it's fine.
But if they do, it's given the state of our roads, it's probably a good idea for us to jump on
I think
that.
we need to be proactive about it if it happens. So, well, let us know if anything does.
I mean, it doesn't have to be the clerk, but it just tends to be because they're in the know.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense to me. Right. Let's move on to financial matters. First item, as ever, is to approve the bank reconciliation, balance sheet and budget. April. Do we approve that? Seconded by Councillor Clark. All those in favour, please indicate. Monthly bank balances are stated. Next one is payments. I'll move the proposition that the schedule of payments for April 2021 as presented at this item are paid and that all related documentation and checks are signed. I realised that I wrote down a note about the figures and then I actually passed my agenda on to somebody else, I think. But it was something just a tad over £40,000 in total.
Yeah.
So I propose that. Anybody any questions before? Seconded by Councillor Fuller. All those in favour? Yeah. Next one is simply to receive the internal control checklist for the first quarter. That's in your papers. It's simply a matter of receiving it. Any
Yeah, just one thing since then. Jerry did write a note that we weren't going to be able to pay money into the cash into the post office because that was supposedly stopping this month. They've extended that now to July with a view to looking at whether they can agree something with the post office. So we hopefully will be able to continue paying in cash.
Yes. It seems almost inconceivable, doesn't it, that we're getting to a stage where you can't actually spend your cash, you can't deposit it anywhere because the banks are closed, the post office doesn't seem to want it. But there we are. Progress of the sort, I suppose. To approve the list of direct debits and standing orders for 2023-2024.
If you look the Excel spreadsheet that you had for the list of payments, at the end is the list of direct debits and standing orders.
Which is why when I first looked at it, I thought I should have every bit of paper bar one. But I hadn't noticed that it was there. In the same way that I hadn't noticed that actually if you scrolled sideways, you can actually read what the payments were for. So I was just sat there looking at a row of figures. I don't approve of this new system. I used to have a nice little list on an A4 sheet and I could work it out. But it is all there. So are we happy with that list of direct debits and standing orders? We have to actually approve it formally, so I'll propose it.
I'll second it.
Words in favour? You're probably getting the feel that this annual meeting has an awful lot of things that we simply have to do, we just have to run through. So I'm sorry it's perhaps slightly dull at times. Which moves us on to the annual governance statement. That one of the most dull documents you've ever seen. But that's also on the list.
There's also the internal audit report just before that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I crossed it off as if we'd done it already. Yeah, received the internal audit report for 2022-23. Any sort of
There was just one mention about the VAT, but we have now got a programme in place so that VAT is going to be checked as part, well, it is checked, but to make sure that it matches with the period car balance, because there were a couple of, the latest one was just where some money that should have been transferred to the QVH wasn't done until after the year end, so that's what threw the period trial balance out. But it's being picked up, and we've now got a control in place to stop that happening again.
Excellent, so we're all happy with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Right, this time we can get on to the annual governance thing. I was so excited by it, I wanted to move on straight to it. There's a bit of a tick box exercise. I'm looking at what I've got in front of me, which is a series of things that we've already completed. But I think we have to actually run through what is down here as section 1, isn't it? And there's a series of questions
That
which
you
I
need to
have
answer yes to.
ask you or not. And on pain of death, the answer is always yes, I believe. If it gets to no, we have to have some sort of inquiries. So question 1, we have put in place arrangements for effective financial management during the year and for the preparation of the accounting statement. I'm happy to tick yes.
Yeah.
Presumably you want me to tick it.
Yes, please, yeah.
We maintained an adequate system of internal control, including measures designed to prevent and detect fraud and corruption, and reviewed its effectiveness. I believe we've done. We took all reasonable steps to assure ourselves that there are no matters of actual or potential non-compliance with laws, regulations and proper practices that could have a significant financial effect on the ability of this authority to conduct its business, its finances.
Yep.
Yes. We provided proper opportunity during the year for the exercise of electors' rights in accordance with the requirements of the accounts and audit regulations. It simply means we put up the posters.
Put up the notice.
So yes again. We carried out an assessment of the risks facing this authority and took appropriate steps to manage those risks, including the introduction of internal controls and or external insurance cover where required. We have both, and we actually have a risk assessment which we look at annually as well. So yes to that. We maintained throughout the year an adequate and effective system of internal audit of the accounting records and control systems. As I've got issues, and we do. So yes. We took appropriate action on all matters raised in reports from internal and external audit, which I believe we did. We considered whether any litigation, liabilities or commitments, events or transactions occurring either during or after the year end have a financial impact on this authority, and where appropriate have included them in the accounting statement. I don't think we have to declare the Ukraine war, but I think everything else really counts. The next one does apply to us. For local councils, trust funds, including charitable, in our capacity as the sole managing trustee, we discharged our accountability responsibilities for the funds or assets, including financial reporting, and if required, independent examination and audit. That's a QBH. Do you deny? And the answer to that one is also yes.
Doesn't NA, but
Those might appear to need to sign. You have to sign it as well. You
Yeah,
can
I'll sign it as well,
later.
yeah.
As you'll see in section
Can we
2.
just have a proposer and a seconder and approve that?
Right.
It has to be
I'll
done
propose it
separately.
formally.
I'll second it.
Those who second it, those in favour.
You.
Proper responsibility must not only be done, but be seen to be done. Section 2 has a whole series of figures in it, which I am sure both our clerk and our finance officer
And also the auditor has
have been through,
approved
and
them.
the auditors have been through. So if you're happy with that, I'll sign that page 2.
Are you,
Do you want to
are you
approve it?
proposing it as well?
I'll propose it.
I'll second it. All those in favour?
Thank you.
And please do that. Get to do that all again next year. To approve the account, oh, we've done that. That was the section 2. To approve the cost for ground preparation, provide more burial plots as recommended by the estates.
I think at the last estates meeting you'd had 2 quotes, hadn't you? Were waiting for the third from the current grave digger. That's come in. The third, as Lisa expected, is a lot cheaper. And his ideas of how he's going to clear that area, it's going to cause a lot less disruption. And that's at 5,500.
So how many, is it like the number of plots that you get? 5?
I mean, it's not a huge number, but
Yeah.
it's certainly.
It's a couple of years breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of course we, associated with the planning application I referred to a few minutes ago, there is within that scope for a further extension to the cemetery. Basically, once that's happened, that's it, there's nowhere else for it to go. So looking into the very longer, even the medium term, we may start to have to think about, do we actually need a second site? But for now, are we happy to approve the...
That is, just to be clear, that is something we did talk about quite a bit. We actually had quite an interesting discussion, I think, about what's the term, the modern approaches, I guess, to yeah.
It's
Right,
something we
yeah.
talked about in the ongoing conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think going forward, yeah, it's going to be one of those things that we talk about for.
If I can just quickly describe for those who don't know the cemetery, it's the sort of new extension section at this end of town. There's an area of, 10 to 20 feet wide across the fence line where there's lots of spoil that's being dumped. And it's to reclaim that, move the spoil around elsewhere,
Yeah.
and provide us some nice banks for wildflowers, hopefully. And give us 3-4 years more space.
But this is, as we agreed, and it's kind of obvious, isn't the problem? It's not going anywhere. So it's a temporary solution.
Yes.
But there isn't a better one, I don't think, at the moment.
Can I formally then propose that we accept the lower of the 2 rates that we've had?
Second,
Councillor Clark, all those in favour? Seems to be everybody. Oh, I see. To receive the speed indicated report, which again is in the pack. More data to add Chris to the North, the Transport Working Party, who, as described at the annual town meeting, to use the report that we've got and all the statistics that have been put together to try and influence NNC a little bit more than we've been capable of seeing in the past, because we've actually got some data to back up what we say. Hitherto, we've tended to say things like, there's a problem, and they don't believe us. If you've got the statistics that show there's a problem, then they've got to take some sort of note.
David, you first.
Happy for you to go first.
Well, I don't mind which of you, but somebody go first.
Yeah, I think 92 miles per hour, 12 o'clock on an afternoon down Bennyfield Road is not a possibility. So we have to take into consideration that there are some anomalies in this data. That's all I'm going to say. So I think some of the extreme speeds, I can't see them being, if you think about it logically, it's impossible to do anything like 70, 80 miles per hour down that road. That's all I'm going to say.
I think you could.
No, not 92.
I think you could in a motorbike or a very fast car.
Not 92.
But I will check this because, I mean, we've not bought this piece of equipment on the view that any of the high speeds are incorrect, because what's the point in having it? And what's to say, if that's not correct, why is a 35 mile correct, but not a 92?
But I do think, you've got to also think about it from a logical perspective. And technology is it's not 100% accurate. It will give you accuracy, but actually it will still give you spurious results, because I've got radar in my car, and sometimes I've noticed it will think a car stopped in front and the brakes come on, so that's a mistake on the car. So they do make mistakes, and so we have to be very cautious about the data. Yes, I mean, it is excessive speed, but I can't see what you're doing. You've got to look at it logically. And I think 60, yeah, but when it gets to 92, 100 miles per hour down that road,
Councillor Shaw and Councillor.
Yeah, there'll be margins of error in any data of this nature, but that's not really my main concern. I think that what these data, both on Blackhorn Road and now on Benningfield Road, and we've had others as well, are showing us that clearly there is quite a bit of speeding. Here it's 1 in 4, 1 in 5 cars are actually speeding, and we are collecting all of these data, which is wonderful. But I'm kind of wondering at what stage we stop collecting and start pushing it across to.
I can answer that.
Yes.
All of these go to the police, don't they? One of the conversations I had with Sarah Barnwell a few months ago is there's nothing we can do, there's nothing they can do, speed cameras, etc. It's got to be the police's decision. So while we can push it in the right direction, I'm not sure we can keep pushing. But it's when they get a group of it, like they are on Blackhorn Road, that they start looking at it as a...
So it's got one addition. Then we're on JAGS. Do you remember? JAGS used to be an organisation that used to meet with the police and those other people every 3 months, and it was like all the parish councillors getting together, and the issue of speed came up, and there are some councillors who've been more active in the past. I'd say we're doing a fantastic job in that. We're getting the data, we're doing very well. But some of the comments were coming back from the police, and so you'll get some of the not saying ours are, but you'll get some ridiculous speeds going through some of the villages with the neighbour. In the end, it's not what the data doesn't tell you is who's speeding. Now it could be that 20% of the population of Arundel are speeding, or it could be that 5% of the people do repeat speeding. So it doesn't tell you that this car's done this 15 times. It's just recording raw data. So extrapolating figures about, I mean, you're the expert down there, so you can give us that, is not always easy, because it could be a couple of people causing most of the issues that we're facing. Not a couple, but not as many as we think there are. So that's the issue that we have to consider, and that's some of the issues that came through from JAGS. 2 times update.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, before I do, we thought about having another transport group
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Mine relates to the amount on one particular road in the town, you know, between March and May, 69,000 vehicles. Speed associated with the type of driver is the very reason we ask the police to come and do a speed check. Because that very same motorist may be cross-border crime.
Yeah, maybe.
It may be somebody driving without a driving licence. It may be somebody driving without MOT. That vehicle then can take off the road. And I think the very data is the thing we give to the police and say, look, we think we've got a problem in our area. Please come to our town. Please carry out the odd speed check on our behalf. As a town council, we ask you to do this because they may just pick off so many of those drivers that we actually don't want in our town. And they're the ones that are coming through at speed and then venturing on to do other things.
Can I just add to that? When we first put this on West Street, they did come out and they did stand and do it. So we can ask them to come out.
It gets the constabulary in the town.
Yes, which is what we
And
want.
it's just a case of showing sometimes that reassurance, gives that reassurance to the rest of the public.
But also with this portable indicator device we've got, we can move it around town. But it also just reminds people, and I know you're always going to get people that will speed.
You are.
But on the whole, hopefully it reminds most people that they need to keep
It's
within
also
speed.
extend that as well and say, look, we've got Staunch at Thrapston. We've got the possibility, it's not coming, it's just been removed off the table. Hunts Council are putting forward a big distribution centre at the top of the A1, A605. A1 junction. They're looking at doing that. Now, if we've got 69,000 vehicles coming through our town to do that, we've then got the added problem of the amount of vehicles, i.e. lorries, that are using the 605. And this sort of data is the very thing that will get those lorries further away and stay on the dual carriageway where they should be. And they should be on the dual carriageways and not running down out to get to those very locations that are either end of the 605. And so this data can be very, very helpful in line with what our transport surveys say. Just my thoughts on what's happening in and around the area.
Councillor Chester.
Can I just check? It says cars, but it means vehicles, doesn't it? Do we know?
Any vehicle. I think
It's
it's
any vehicle.
It'd be any
It'd be
vehicle.
better if it said.
Whatever it's kicking up. Could be you running about.
I've gone past too fast
on a bike.
It's probably a scooter doing 92 miles per hour.
I'm just checking.
No, it is any vehicle.
It would be useful
It'd be
to
any
know because we do have far too many very heavy vehicles going through the town and using that road.
Just two quick points. One of the recommendations from the transport report was to get a second one of these, which looks like it's been quite well supported. The other thing is that when I was talking to, I think it might have been our local policeman maybe, about some of these, he said that occasionally, and I've certainly seen them, we've had some high-speed Northampton police cars come through. Yeah, he suggested one or two of these top readings are actually a police car or an ambulance, which makes sense.
Councillor Fuller.
And what's happening? Do we not have a speed watch? Because you'd be saying, look at the state and say, right, we do need something on that road to check the speed.
I don't think we have. I think they tried.
I thought they'd started again.
Sorry.
They had stopped a little bit, haven't they?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's right. So we tried to restart it last year. We got the gun for 3 months. It was a group of, I think, 4 or 5 people. And then the gun got taken away after 3 weeks. So I think all that happened in the end was we proved that there were cars in handle properly. And we have to wait for the next time we get it, which might be in a year or 18 months' time.
Thank you.
So, yeah, it would be nice if maybe we can boost it again next time it comes round, but I think it's very much in the hands of what the police give us. There's a new coordinator. He didn't do much coordinating. He exists.
Right, I think we'll probably cover that as much as we can. Let's move on. The next item is planning. Minutes of the meeting that was held on the 2nd of May have been tabled. There are actually only 2 applications for us to consider, but one of those was a fairly extensive works proposed at Prince William, and you'll see that we have quite a lengthy response to what was being put forward. Questions on the minutes of that meeting? One of the things that meeting did was say that this full council, having asked the planning committee to look at the Northamptonshire Gypsy and Traveller Local Plan, the committee then decided in its wisdom that somebody better draft some sort of a response to the consultation, which I then did. That has been circulated. It's not a lengthy consultation document, thank heavens. In fact, I think it's actually only about 14 pages of work. It's a supplementary document as well. But I literally went through it and highlighted in bold the various proposed responses that I suggested that perhaps as a council we might make. Obviously, to some degree, when I say things like Humber Town Council favours option 3, what it actually meant was that David Chapel favoured option 3, having looked at it, because I hadn't consulted with anybody else to come up with that. So I do hope people have looked through the document on the basis that the responses have to be in by the end of the month, so there isn't another meeting at which it can be looked at. But if we're broadly happy with that, what I'll do is ask Lisa to take the bits that are in bold in here and then put those together for the response document to be sent off to NNC. There is nothing in the consultation that suggests that we're about to get any sort of gypsy or traveller sites on our doorstep, which might have provoked a certain amount of consternation locally. But they are looking at where this provision that they've identified they need should go. Come up with various ideas, which include, perhaps fairly sensibly, looking at existing sites and can they be expanded rather than developing it. Looking at sites that don't currently have permission but are extant in case they could be authorised. But it's something that we want no doubt to keep an eye on in case anything has a direct bearing on the parish. Unlikely though it seems at the moment, and there are currently no sites anywhere near us, either gypsy or traveller sites, or the other one is trapping showmen. They haven't even differentiated, but they do. It's quite interesting looking at a map of this part of the world and seeing where the current sites are. So, does anybody have any comments, suggestions, amendments?
I'm happy to oppose.
Mine was just in support of what you've done, David, because we discussed, as David said, we discussed at the meeting, and the better position to have is have a position. Because then if we were to get an illegal encampment, and there's a policy within Northants, it gives us a better position to actually challenge that if we were to get one. If, say, an individual had suddenly spiritually bought a plot of land and stuck a load of caravans on it, the position of Northants would give us a lot more power, once through the courts, but to have that go. So thank you for doing that, David. Appreciate it.
And I'm happy to oppose it.
I'm happy to second it.
Right. Proposed and seconded, all those in favour? Right, I'll sort that out with Lisa. Estates management received the minutes from the Estates Committee meeting held on the 25th of April.
Yeah, as you will see, the next item, other than what we discussed about the cemetery, the next item is the main point, really. something, I suppose. Yeah, do you want
So does anybody have any comments or questions arising out of the minutes other than the Dribble car park issue, which we'll look at in a second? In which case, would you like to talk us through them?
Okay, so as anyone who's paying attention to Councillor Shaw's quiz will know, when Pandora's box was opened, there was hope that was in the bomb. And in the case of trying to come up with an answer to a local resident about having reserved residence parking, in this instance outside the drill hall, we seem to have opened that box. It's a really interesting subject, and it's something I personally would like to expand on in terms of parking. I don't know if we'd attach that to the transport group or just keep it with the estates, but parking generally in Alderwood is a really big issue, and it's something I'm quite passionate about. Anyway, we had a gentleman visit us at the last social meeting, and he liked the idea of the 6, I think they're former cottage houses in front of the drill hall car park. He owns one of them, was recently bought one of them. His understanding when he purchased the property was that there is a designated parking space in front of that. Well, there isn't, in a legal sense. And he put it to us that maybe there should be designated resident parking in town. And I personally think that's an idea to look into. He, however, has taken it upon himself to see that as a green light to, in one instance, inform the police about somebody else's car being parked there, and somehow he thinks he's got the council's backing to do this, which is not the case and not what we said to him. We stipulated very clearly.
You carry on. I'll add some more to this.
Yeah. Yeah. So currently, we're sort of in a position where hopefully we'll keep talking about the estates, but the idea was to have a like a temporary
agreement.
Yeah, essentially to like a practice, basically drill to see what, in terms of having 6 spots for residents parking outside the estates. I don't know if we're actually going to go through with that now, considering this residents' actions.
Well, I just wanted to follow on from that because it has caused a lot of issues, not necessarily with people that don't live in that row, but also people that live in that row are not happy about this idea, because they're quite happy to be able to park as many cars as they like, however, for as long as they want, whereas if we suddenly only offer them 6, some people are not very happy. And and we've also had other issues now. We've got people, even I think today or yesterday, somebody complaining about a car being in there that's got a for sale sign in it. And will we look into this? So Lisa's getting a lot of email traffic. Now, my other thought is, I think if we were to go down that route and decide this, I think you would need to certainly consult with people in the town, because the minute we did that, and all of a sudden somebody walks past that car park and sees 6 residential parking spaces, we will get an uproar from a lot of people that are struggling to park on roads and don't have parking.
I was just going to say, oh sorry.
That's Councillor Gray first. I think we'll call the council. It's true.
I was just going to say, I mean, Blackpot Lane, for example, is a classic road in Oundle where parking is horrendous and cars are, and it's a bugbear of mine personally, because, walking from Waitrose back to my home, you can't actually walk on the pathway because cars are always parked there. So, I mean, you can only imagine the uproar, people who live there, if parking spaces are allocated to people outside those houses in Benfield Road, then, you know, you'd have to do it for other people in the town.
Yeah.
So I think it would create more headache than it would resolve.
And it has really created a
Yeah.
headache
Yeah.
since.
I was going to say, I've had someone who lives there or thereabouts saying that they have diametrically opposite view and they don't want a designated space, they don't want to pay for it because they don't. So it unpicks lots of issues.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we discussed was the idea of if you say this is a parking space that goes into this house, when the house is sold, there's a parking space. So there's a lot to unpick, but it's something we can keep talking about. So.
And we also had a debate about East Road, because there was some talk at one stage, wasn't there, of having designated parking bays along there, because that's another road which is really tricky for local residents.
Resident parking restrictions, aren't there?
Yeah. And it led to those resident parking restrictions. So, as you say, it has rather opened Pandora's box, but we probably do need a policy in relation to it. I certainly think that in terms of the Drillhall car park, the right place for that to be considered is within the States, although the wider issue of parking in the town is very much part of that transport study. So the two things are going to link. But I have concerns about apparently seeming to favour half a dozen properties in the town by, in effect, giving up space which is otherwise available to everybody when space in this town is at a premium. So I'm sure that perhaps that will be featuring further on the agenda, but I suspect in the meantime we have to make it clear to the particular individual you've mentioned that this councillor has not agreed to anything particular. Councillor Chesson, Councillor Shura.
Also, if you've got designated spaces which are only occupied by one person, that means that there might be long times when the space is not actually filled, whereas if you've got them undesignated, you can have a much bigger turnover, a bigger churn of use.
Jamie's already summarised the situation very well, and we had a long discussion about this at the meeting. And there are a number of issues that arise from it. And I'll just mention a couple that I think we haven't yet discussed. The first is the configuration of the car park, and I have subsequently gone and looked at the car park, and I do think parking spaces could be configured slightly more, I was going to say ergonomically, but I don't think that's the right word, but they could be configured in a way that one can get slightly more cars in.
Efficiently.
Not heaps, but maybe 4 or 5, and that might. So I think there's work to be done there. The second thing I fully agree. I mean, the sentiment's been raised already. I just support it that there's a real danger of here creating a precedent that if we allow these 5 properties to have reserved parking, we'll get inundated with similar requests from elsewhere in town, and we have to think very seriously about that. The third issue, and it of course relates to all of our car parks, not just this, is that it's how we police the car parks, and in particular the abuse of the car parks. Because I think one of the things that prompted some of this action on behalf of the resident was the fact that I think a car had been abandoned there, another car had a kind of cover over it, suggesting that I'm parking here, and I'm here for the duration, so to speak. So it's a question of how we also police what you might call abuse of car parks, and I think we need to have a better policy about that, not just for this car park, but potentially for all of our car parks.
There's a constraint as well with the Clipboard car park, which is that one of the people who owns a property that borders it has right of way across the car park, which does hamper the way in which you can set it out.
And they've also actually taken a bit of land that doesn't belong to them, but that's another issue.
Right. That may be an issue for another day, not necessarily in a public meeting. Anything more on that point? Or shall we move on? Climate Working Party. Jones, I'm assuming.
I thought that was drafted.
Oh, you drafted it, sorry.
Conversation.
Apologies.
Slide that we had. In essence, there's nothing particularly exciting, but it's just to keep giving us a focus for this year. The top priority is the one that I think is coming up soon. Our contract, electricity contract, comes up in June, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I've recently had an email about that.
So just getting something 100% renewable if possible and cheap would be great as well. And we also talked about the fact that we've had a pretty successful warm space for the last few months, but obviously with the predicted weather and what we had last year, a cool space in Flat House was important. We discussed whether there was air conditioning in the barn room, but I gather there's not air conditioning yet. But growing up in Australia, as we talked about today, I'm amazed how few houses in Britain have blinds. And just putting some blinds on these south-facing windows could make a huge difference. So one of the things we might look at next month or two is trying to get some quotes. Because stopping the sun getting into the building stops the building getting hot. And if we can advertise to people that there's a place they can come and it's too hot, that's just as valuable potentially as a warm space.
Cool. It's a good point. I mean, houses in Mediterranean countries don't have those shutters for no reason.
Exactly.
So, although it sometimes seems counterintuitive to sort of draw curtains and things rather than throw open the windows, actually it does have the effect of cooling the room.
My attractive shade cloth experiments work very well.
Right, well, no doubt more on that in due course. Does anybody disagree with any of the priorities or wish to add anything that isn't already on the list?
Take it, and see if EV vans are ready for use. Is that a van as in council van, like the school have got?
We looked at getting an EV van a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, didn't we? But towing capacity is the issue. But I think things have moved on, and the more astute you'll have seen, there's a different school van driving around at the moment, which is an EV van. I talked to the driver a couple of weeks ago, and who said, I said, what do you think of it? He said, it's awful.
Yeah.
I thought that's not the response I was hoping for.
Yeah.
But he's used to having a one just because it's the one they've got doesn't have a lift, so now he has to lift things in. So it's that issue. He said it's great to drive, it's really cheap, and petrol stations being much further away. A van that you charge here is something to look for the next few months as one of the vans no doubt is moving towards the end of its life for us.
Right. Communications Working Party to approve the terms of reference. We're looking towards David for that.
Well, it's really Emma's been working it. I missed all the meetings, but I'm happy with it. So
Yeah. I mean, I know it almost seems like it's ahead of what we discussed earlier, but this has been going on for a few months. And it was just started because obviously John joined the working party, and we just arranged a meeting to get together, and we went through, and there were just a few tweaks that we made, explained. I know you weren't there, but we did explain. It was just basically about how we use our social media, and all posts that go out on social media go through the working party, the Comms Working Party. But obviously that doesn't have an impact on, as individuals, what you put on your own social media, so long as you are doing it as an individual and not doing it on behalf of the council. So it's just sort of, tidying it up a bit, and that's what we did.
we also just because of social media, because it was at the time when Gary Lineker was in the press with his Twitter things. So that's the reason why we went to get some advice, and that's what's helped generate this report and this document, and I'm happy with it, and I hope that the council will agree.
My only question is point 3C, councillors must liaise with the comms and admin office with posts relating to the council. Does that mean I have to ask to repost something?
No, it's if you want, if you see something and you think, oh, I really think, we should post this, then you just fire it off to us.
It's like, so I tend to say, like police stuff, I tend to go,
This would be
Emma,
good,
Rebecca, those tend to go on anyway,
Mm.
but I send them to, because we can't put them on, Rebecca does. So in some respects, if you want something on the OTC social media, you have to go through the office, and that's reinforced by that. I'm happy to propose.
I was looking at this. So Councillor Fuller proposes, is somebody going to second it? Councillor Clark, all those in favour? Again. The next one is simply to receive the latest advertiser article. I must admit, as somebody who was a little sceptical at one point, because we used to have our own chronicle.
Yeah,
We used to,
it's working very well.
if you go back far enough, councillors had their own rounds and we used to physically put it through every door in Arundel. But now, using those publications that are out there anyway, does seem to be working. And I do see people looking at it, sometimes even keep. So, I think it works. Councillor Clark, I think you wanted to go first on Councillor.
I was just going to, I spotted teacher mode, which I don't know. It's an article on the food festival, and somewhere it's capital A, and then in the article it's small f.
Yeah, I did point that out.
But I don't know if that's
My
on purpose.
teacher hat was on that one.
That's fine.
Just a general view to all councillors. So every month? Every month we do this, and so we tend to do it ourselves. But obviously it's open to anybody. So if you've got an interesting thing that you want to put into the newsletter that you think the town would like to hear, it's a very effective way of getting to the town. You've seen the nature of the sort of articles, so please pass it through to Emma or Rebecca. Really, it's really needs it, isn't it? So just do that, and then it will be the next one. And it doesn't have to be 2 pages. We can have more.
It's also great that it forms the basis of the email that gets sent out now by MailChimp.
I didn't know that.
So, which we all get a copy of,
Yeah.
but it all goes into our junk email. So if you look in your junk email and this council account, you'll get a couple of emails in there showing you what's on it. It's great. It's a nice way of regenerating stuff.
Please.
Right. Correspondence is simply the latest edition of the update, which, surprisingly, at 9 o'clock brings us round to any other relevant matters for report only. So I'll start over there with Councillor Fuller. Councillor Chesser.
I'm very grateful that we're finished by 9 o'clock. I think we should have 3 cheers.
Can't guarantee it's always
Very
going to
good.
work as well as that, but anyway, thank you. Start there. Councillor Davis. Mr. Shaw. Councillor Gray. Councillor Arnold.
Just one thing, as everybody... As everybody will be aware, Barclays closed now, and that means there is one less cash machine in Arundel, as I used to work at Co-op, and they have one, but it's very, very temperamental. I assume that with whatever we advertise with, we are saying that you can get money at the post office and the cashback is available in most shops, things like that. It's just more of a public service.
I think we did put something out, I think in the advertiser, but I've since found out that I think either the day after it's shut, they ran out of cash at
Yes.
Co-op,
Yeah.
and Tesco's also ran out of cash
Yeah.
for cashback.
Yeah.
Well, they're not open every day either.
No, exactly. Someone on last Sunday or something like that asked me in the street.
What happened to the discussion that we had at one meeting about possibly having a cash machine?
It's too high risk.
We'll get Rob.
Yeah.
It'll be Rob. That's right, we don't have any more smash and grab.
Yeah.
Smashing them up.
We've had 2 smash and grabs, one at Co-op, one at Co-op. So every single ATM has been a target and successfully grabbed.
Sarah, it could solve your problem. If you had cash here, you could put a poster out on the website.
Yeah.
You'd always be able to problem
We don't get that much, unfortunately.
You'd always be able to, you'd sort of get a rush.
You seem to recall some years ago to saying we wouldn't hold petty cash, partially for just the hassle of handling it, and secondly for security reasons. I'm not entirely sure I will advertise the fact. Cash order process.
30 minutes, open window.
Some of my more lawless clients might visit us. Councillor Jones.
Nothing from me.
Nothing from me either, other than to say something once we've stopped the recording.
Okay. Closing the meeting now then.